personal power, people positive, the community of connection. This is the Bob Jeswald Show.
Is that when you talk to Jerome, Lawson, and somebody who was incarcerated, and people always hear a lot of times, I have buddies of mine, they worked up at Attica Prison. Now they're dealing with a whole different crew there. It's not Jerome style stuff. But with you, it's important to have that, because the whole idea is to build you up, get you productive back in society. No one wants to be in there, and now you're doing this great thing. I mean, it's incredible. So, curing violence in the inner city, and especially where you grew up, and how profound it is like you're like, hey, Bob, I didn't play any sports until I was incarcerated, but something good came out of that. What would the one thing that came out of that was good, so now we could be giving back to community, and mentally it makes us much better, all of us in the community too, to know that Jerome's out there, somebody who lived it, is now giving back and able to try to see what he could do to help cure some of this violence. So
Right.
what was that one element you think you got out of being incarcerated that you wanted to bring back out in society again to say, look, I'm going to help out?
It's amazing that you brought that up, because I was praying the other night, and because I'm biblically based.
Right.
I'm not necessarily a Christian. I'm biblically based, though. Like, my whole thing is Bible based. But I embrace Hebrewism. So one thing I was thinking about was conviction, right? And a lot of people aren't familiar. Most people should be with the Spirit. They call it the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But before we had the Holy Spirit, we had the law. And the Bible says the law was the school teacher. And I was just like, conviction. The law was meant, if you break the law now, you're convicted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you talk about in the mindset of a man or a woman, anybody, conviction has to drive you to do what's right. And then we have the Spirit now, which basically is a constant conviction. It's a teacher as well, but conviction was just to let you know that it was either right or wrong. So when I was in prison, I was heavily convicted to come back out and basically share a message to people that was going down the path that I was going down. Because I don't think a lot of people got the severity of what it meant to be locked up and incarcerated. Like, it's more than just going to jail or prison. You lose your freedom. You lose your citizenship. You lose relationships. You miss out on life. My mom, she was sick through the whole ordeal. I lost my grandma. I lost a couple other family members. It's just the whole process of what it is to be 16 years old in a prison system. People have to understand that process of how it affects a person. And I was just telling Miss Pam about that. Like, we have to really face the giants. Like, we got this issue with banning the box on applications. Why are we fighting so hard to ban a box when we could just tell the people, change your policies to give people a job?
There you go. It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we fighting and spending money on ban the box and do this. No, if you say you want me to be productive and give back and be a citizen again, change the things that create the obstacles for me. You're in the power to do it. And that brings about the big question, one word question: why? Why did we stop doing certain things? Why did we stop giving people the option to go to the military rather than prison? Why did we stop it? It wasn't costing us money. It wasn't hurting anybody. Why? And I'm like, I don't want to deal with anybody unless they're willing to face those truths. I don't want to walk around things and tiptoe around things. Let's just be organically honest. Even if you don't like it, let's just be real about it, because that's what's going to change these people in our community. Back to your point, that conviction drove me to say, I don't care what the cost is. I believe in God, and I walk in that power, and I don't try to step on nobody's toes. I just want to let these young people know that you can get the money without the prison chances or the death chances. Let's accomplish the same thing you want, minus the casualties in prison time.
And, the degree of somebody who did it, because when what brought you in your incarceration? What was the one thing? I mean, we don't have to get into a lot of detail, but what was your, why did you go to prison?
Oh, I went to prison for armed robbery and aggravated assault.
Okay. And that's something, when you think of that, you could turn your life around from that. And of course, it's not something, you're now in a position that you got to that position. What do you think made that happen? What was it, the guys you were hanging out with? Did you feel like you were missing something in your life? And what we could do to these kids today that are doing something similar or killing one another, because we have such a high rate of death among our inner city kids, and unfortunately, many of them are young kids that are in the inner cities. In our case, there's particular places in South Columbus, but it affects everybody as a whole. And I think that's what people got to understand. It's a community thing. It affects everybody. Right. And it's not just, it's a South Columbus's problem. No, it's not. It becomes everybody's. Inherently, this is a problem for us all, and we have to work together on it. So the kids that are going down that path where you went down, what do you think was it? What was that one thing that happened to you that maybe you could see within these other kids?
Well, first of all, I think it was divine. I think God literally said, hey, I'm pulling you out so I can condition you to put you back in. I can't take credit, for it being any process of my own. I tell people all the time, if you genuinely want to help people, you have to give everything you can to understand how that person is the way they are. Like people say, I wonder why these kids are doing this. Why are they doing it? If all you see is this type of behavior, that's what you're going to exhibit. That's just the reality of it.
And would you say this would happen to you? Would you say in a sense it happened to you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, coming up, that's what I saw. I love my dad. Me and my dad got an awesome relationship. My stepdad raised me because my real dad left. Mm-hmm. But the crazy thing is they stay 3 blocks away from each other now.
Oh,
and it's
gotta be kidding.
like,
if that's not something, that's not coincidence.
So I go and see, and I got 2 little brothers too as well, and they look up to me. But when I look back in my life, it's like I seen my dad drinking. I seen him selling dope.
Normal. It's like that's supposed to. Yeah,
it's nothing like, you can go to jail for that. No, this is normal. And then I turn around and I see my mom doing the drugs. Mm-hmm. So it's like, then when you go to school, it's like I see the young kids selling the drugs, and we out there hustling, doing our thing. We didn't have nobody that came to us and said, "Hey, man, you can be somebody in your life." We had people come to us and say, "Hey, man, you make 100, keep 25, give me the other 75."
There you go.
We was conditioned, and how can you blame somebody for being conditioned and they had no control of it? It's like blaming a child for being not being 15 when he's 10. You can't expect them to be something that you're not taught to be. And I was telling my wife this as a married couple, addressing some of the issues that we deal with. I said, baby, I can't be mad or upset about something you was never taught, and vice versa. But what will upset me is if we're not willing to put forth the effort to be better once we learn how to do better, right?
It's like turning away. Like I always say, this is I had a pastor tell me this before, that people say they're born again. Well, if you already knew Christ, how can you be born again? You're just re-crucifying the situation again, or would be re-crucifying Christ, when you can just ask for forgiveness and just do better and move forward, and that's what I would say Christianity is all about. And you're a spiritual guy, and I could see that, and that really helped a lot. You regained that in prison, it sounds like. Did you kind of get that study, or did you? Yeah, you're surrounded by. Yeah.
I met a Catholic guy in prison. He gave me a concordance.
To one Catholic to another. There you go. You're singing my tune.
He gave me a concordance, and he was like, "This will really help you with your studies." And I started breaking the words down in the Hebrew and the Greek text. And it opened up, but I had to become spiritual to get it.
Yeah, you can't just do it right. The concordance is a great tool for anyone out there. I've used it to understand Hebrew, Greek, the translation or transliteration, and the transverb, and because there's a lot of stuff you wouldn't know without that. But it's there. Yes. Yeah, it's there.
It's translate then transliterate.
Yeah.
And I tell people there's a difference. When you translate something, you change it. But when you transliterate something, you keep it in a fashion that it still represents what you changed it from. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly. Perfectly. Well said.
And when I read that, and I tell a lot of people now, even the Bible says that, to people who aren't spiritual things are going to confuse them.
Yeah.
So I can't speak spiritual to somebody who don't have the spirit in them. And I'm always praying, like, Lord, lead me in the direction you need me to go. Whoever you need me to speak to, I can't try to cherish my life. And Christ said that, you know, if you value your life, you're not worthy to follow after me. And that's where we got to be. Men have to get back to the point where if our young children are fearless in what they're doing, we have to be fearless in our effort to save our community. We're not going to stop all the violence because violence has been a part of our existence forever. But what we have to understand is we have to be ready for the ones who are willing to come out of that way of life. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. They have to go through that process of us re-indoctrinating them of something better than what they've experienced. Because if you go out here to an 8-year-old and he can make $1,000 in a week, you can't promote education to him. He's focused on, I can get money. And money's solving my problems right now. Not your messages, not your hope. Money right now is solving my problems because my mom, she's doing it by herself. I got other siblings. So if I can make this money and help my mom's situation, I don't want to hear what you got to say.
That is the most salient, germane point of this whole thing. And I think that applies to everybody because it's a buddy of mine in Vegas who fell in love with a stripper. True story. If he hears this, I'm not going to say his name, but he'll know who I'm talking about. And we told him, you ain't going to change her. She's used to making $5,000 a year at that time. It was $5,000 a week. It's probably more now. And she was using drugs, but she didn't want to do it anymore. He took her in his house, and guess what? She ended up with the house. She got pregnant. But the long story was that she went back to her lifestyle. He was able to get a quarter through fighting, and after he got kicked out of his own home because he got so mad he spit on her, which is still it's a felony in Nevada. You can't do that because it's abuse. So he got kicked out. He's living in downtown Las Vegas in a terrible motel, but he finally got everything back with lots of money and legal fees and everything else. But you just can't change that element, as you're saying. So cure. How does cure transliterate, as you just said? I'm going to call you the seed planter, if I may. Yeah, you're planting seeds. You give the credit to God, and he's watering it. But as the person like you, how do you cure that? Because you made a good point. You're right. You cannot change that. There's no way. So are you just throwing a couple words out, saying a prayer and getting it? But how does cure come in? How does the program come in to at least change that one child or maybe pull them in so we can show them there's a better way?
Well, okay, I'm glad you asked that because, you know, each scenario is different. And when I go out, I'm just thankful that a lot of people know me through my food truck.
Oh, that's great.
I used to take my food truck to the strip club on weekends for like 3 years. And I've never had an incident. Like, I was out there by myself till like 5 in the morning. People would call me from other clubs like, stay there, I'm coming. I never got robbed or anything. And anytime something would happen, people would come and say, hey, you know, we're about to go down. You might want to. They would give me that option of, hey, you might remove your truck.
So like you got a heads up,
yes,
a nod. Isn't that something? I believe that. It's
so
protection.
I was like, Lord, thank you for that. But it also motivated me. Like Jeremiah, he was like, don't be dismayed in front of the people now, or I will dismay you in front of them. Like, whatever he puts in you, you got to follow that.
Yeah, if you ignore this, you got somebody to use it. The Holy Spirit worked in that way, as you said, and guided you to do that. That's remarkable for that. And is it that you're leading by example with Cure? Because the Department of Public Health is involved in this program, and you're out there. You were incarcerated at 16. You got out of prison. How old were you?
I was 26.
26.
10 straight years.
10 years. Oh, way to go, brother. I'm telling you. And you came out great. I mean, you really did. I mean, you're a good story with this because of what you're doing.
You know, when I got out, I wasn't always, a guy told me, man, it's kind of like, and I learned this from prison. I did a lot of studying and meditating when I was in there. It's like a soldier going to the military and you getting trained. No matter how much training, when you get out there in the field.
So now you're in the field. Yeah.
You have to process your training because no matter how much training you get, it's nothing like the real thing. That's why they try to assimilate it as close as possible to the actual thing because they know when you get out there, the biggest thing that they have confidence in is that you can enact your training and that will connect to who you are as a person and you can function. So with me, to your question earlier, when I go out here talking to these young people in the community, I'm 100% guided by the Spirit. I'll say that first. But there's always a ram in the bush for me. It's either somebody who knows me or something. And what I do is when I talk to these young kids, I don't tell them to stop what they're doing. No. I tell them, listen, if you're going to sell drugs, okay. But let me tell you what they're doing on this side, legislatively speaking. You know, they're giving out this much time for this. If you get caught as a validated gang member, they just passed a law that says you can automatically get a mandatory minimum of 10 years. I just want to paint this picture so that even though you doing what you're doing, let me just show you the consequences of your actions. However, if there's a point that you want to do this in a different fashion, if you want to make this same money minus the death and minus the prison, I can show you that. And when you're ready for that, if you want to, here go my card. And then you got people who meet them, and I hear them, they be like, man, somebody asked about you, and they were like, hey, man, I told them you were straight up. You was a good dude. You 100. Your integrity means so much out here. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I try to do it. If I can't do it, I don't tell you. And I just try to walk in such a way that the same way y'all see me in this room right now, I'm the same way in the community. I'm just a little more jokeful in the community. I might say some jokes.
Well, let's do a couple.
No, not like jokes. Not like jokes. Like, okay, I tell you.
I know what you're saying. No, tell me one. Yeah, tell me one.
I think, let me see. I heard my homeboy say this. He said, if somebody gets shot in the living room, it's still a living room.
I wouldn't know. It's not anymore because it's not living. It's a dead room.
So,
dead zone.
so can two enemies sit on a love seat?
Oh, well, that's a good. Two enemies sit in a love seat. I love that one too.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, but you know,
show me the love.
Right. So it's just whatever the atmosphere shows me, I kind of connect to that. You know, I grew up on Winston Road, Fort Benning Road, Elizabeth County, Wilson. My family was everywhere. So when I go and people see me, I believe in the spirit of community. That's one of my biggest things. I want to revive the spirit of community. When you can come outside, see the children playing over there, you know, you drinking out the water faucet outside. Yeah. You're not worrying about somebody gonna speed through and shoot up because they're looking for this one person. And a lot of these young people out here, they're on demon time and they're crashing out. Yeah. And that just simply means that they're not studying who God is. They're gonna go for what they need to go for. And you got real young people that'll shoot you just as quick Draw McGraw. Yeah. And I respect the code of the streets. I don't just act like I'm just this big old untouchable person. Right. But however, I just try to respect people where they are and let them know I'm not here to betray your trust. Because a lot of the people from where I'm from, they don't even know what hope is. Yeah,
they never had it.
Yeah, you never had it.
And then therefore they're living in the moment.
Day to day.
Yeah.
And you got people on this side, and that's what I said at council. It's nothing wrong with you not knowing what's going on at this level. But when I get in the gap to bridge it and convey their message to you as our leaders or whoever, be willing to help. Don't say it for the camera. Don't say it for the audience or for people to say, oh, he's speaking good. We need people and not politicians.
I totally agree. This is a state run program.
Right.
So that being said, how are they receiving? What if we can wave a magic wand with the legislatures, the politicians, what would that be that they're listening to you? I mean, they're listening, they're nodding, they bring gratuitous, say, you know, hey, Jerome, you're doing a great job, we love you, and get the pictures with you. I understand what you're saying. It becomes a big PR, perfect little poster. We don't want that. You want people to listen to what you're saying. This is what's happening on the streets. Right. So what would you say that these politicians need to change? Like, what are they not listening to? If we need some help today, it seems like you're doing the right thing, leaving a card. You're not lecturing. Yeah. You're giving them education and knowledge. You're giving them facts. Like, here's the facts, dude. Legislature says this is going to happen because clearly if they're in the moment every day, they don't know the consequence. They don't know when they go spray that neighborhood and they get pegged later and somebody gets pinched for selling the dope on the other side as, you know, somebody's hyping over here or doing that. I'm using 80s vernacular here, my age here. But so what do you...
The Bible says that my people perish because they have no knowledge.
And so we need these politicians to get knowledge. So what What are you saying? Are you like, what are they not hearing you say?
Well, it's hard. It's kind of like what we just said about the young child who don't know what hope is.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, we got these people who don't know what true disparity is. Like I was just talking to Pam outside earlier. We come from a racist system. That's just the reality of it. Our country was built on that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, that's fine. We got to stop trying to clean the carpet. We need to rip the carpet up and put down new carpet. Because no matter who we get in office, we're still in the same old system.
It's just one. You're
it's
thinking it more or less. You're saying it's just a different face, another
different
year,
face.
another
So
one.
my thing is, if I can wave a wand and make anything happen, it would just be, and I know it probably would never happen because as many times as we had the opportunity to change it, we haven't changed it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of what can we do, it's what we should have done. We shouldn't have never said that the same people who this country was, the backs of the people who this country was built on, now we can't employ them if they got a record.
Yeah.
The 13th Amendment, now the slavery, no involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. What does that mean? When I got my pardon, it said all civil disabilities have been restored. That means when you break the law, they take your citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're able to treat you like that and work you for free and pay you a little bit of nothing, if anything. That's why they're able to do these things, because when you break the law, when slavery was abolished, supposedly with the 13th Amendment, they came off the plantation. But after about 2-3 miles, it's like, stop. Who's going to feed us? Where we going to work? You're free, but you're not citizens. So 14th Amendment ensured citizenship. 15th Amendment protected that. So now it's like you had to amend the Constitution to accept the whole person because they were 3/5 of a person, right?
Right.
So now, come all the way back to now. Now our prison looks like plantations. Prison is the only thing that's never suffered a recession because it was always about convict leasing, making money off of these people. So you mean to tell me if our state can make millions of dollars a month off of inmate labor, do you think they really want to stop it?
That's an interesting statement. I never really looked at it that way.
Right.
I mean, it's the face of incarceration is a lot. It's the ethnic minority. And it's always has been in many cases. I grew up in Western New York, and a lot of times when I grew up, it was a lot of the Italians, or it would be some sect of somebody who committed, certain crimes. You would see that, but then there's also the face of a black man, and then the Hispanic man today. And that, as you're saying, when you're incarcerated, you learn the sport of soccer from some of your Hispanic, I'll say your compadres. You met some good brothers, your brothers, yeah. And so it's this systemic thing. It gets passed from one generation to the next. You want to see it better than that.
Because think about this.
Yeah.
Police officer, correction officer, there's no way to say that we're dealing with a biased person because you can always hide behind the policy and the law. I feared for my life, so I shot him.
I mean,
right?
That's what's being said. Yeah.
But you, as soon as you said, no, it was because he was black. No, he broke the law. I feared for my life. He was challenging me. It's set up in such a way that you can hide your bias and prejudice. No matter who you is, black, white, it don't matter.
Even somebody doesn't know, they're like, I don't hate someone for their color, but it's just that innate feeling or that moment that you're doing that. And through that, I think that with you being able to explain this to some of these, you're being real to these kids.
Yeah.
As you're getting down, are you getting at the gang level, or are you trying
all levels? All levels.
All levels. So that's pretty deep with Cure Violence. So you're getting in there. When you get there, you're trying to change the minds in that. But we still need help from this other end, which is the politicians. Is it adding more police going to help? What is it that to explain it, because I think people don't understand. I mean, we need better police, but you could police all day long.
You got 100 policemen. Out of those 100, who's connected to these communities that they're policing? Like I was in.
I think of Billy Bush locally. I know him locally because he grew up in South Clough of MLK, right across from the Y down there. AJ McClung.
He grew up.
Yeah.
But you think about it. When you're dealing with children, you ain't never had a mom or dad that smoked drugs and sold drugs. You ain't never committed a robbery, like we was talking about with Colin. Imagine if they legislatively passed the first offender and say, if you got locked up from 18 below,
right,
for whatever charge, and you did your time and got out and haven't got back in any other trouble, you can be incentivized by the first offenders. You can be hired as a police officer, correction officer. It don't matter who. You can get hired. These are the peer-to-peer people we need to go out here in these communities. We don't need nobody to go out here and try to talk. Just to be honest, we don't need a white or black officer who's never been involved in anything like this in these communities and go out here to police them. There's no cultural connection there, right?
Right.
So what are you going to, you can't, okay, he's irate, he's mad, but if you know what crack does, or if you know what lace weed or fentanyl, whatever, if you know what it does, if you've experienced that before, been around that, you can say, hey, I need an ambulance rather than let me put them in cuffs. You get what I'm saying?
I'm loving this. So, could you be the liaison then from those coming out of prison to do what you're doing to get more soldiers on the ground? Like you said, you're trained like an army infantryman, and you know the routine. I mean, you trained it. Now you're in battle in a sense on the streets because you get the language. You know the territory. But you're right. There's so many people. I think the part of the problem is now and God bless people who want to become a police officer now to do it, but you see the recruiting people who never seen any of this, but they want to be the citizen of the law. They want to do it, but could a kid, they're going to see right through it. This guy, or this woman, or this guy, he's never, shoot, man, he doesn't understand my story. He doesn't know my plight. He's not here. Right. He's not here on the streets every day, so how the heck do they know? I can't count on them and trust. But do we employ you with Cure Violence and get the boots on the ground?
That's what Cure Violence is about. They're using people from these same backgrounds to hire them through the DPH system, West Central Health District. You know, they changed the requisites for people like myself to be hired because they understand the importance of using people like myself to go out in these communities because we have that buy-in. And also training them to understand that we need to treat violence like a disease, you know, instead of just trying to go in and fix the situation and put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Let's try to understand why these people are doing the behaviors that they're doing, right?
Right.
And one of the scriptures that I love the best is all I get an understanding. We have to have an understanding. We have to have people who are willing to understand. Then once you understand, be understanding enough to have compassion. To look at somebody else who don't have what you have, never came from where you come from, and try to some degree to be empathetic to their situation, right?
Right.
How can 70% of men locked up right now come from a single parent household? Yes, and most of those households are women, right? Mm-hmm. I am trying to reestablish men in our community because that's what we need. On every turn, we're either locked up, we're feminized, killed, or something.
I know what you're saying, yep.
And people say, well, we're at this point now, and I'm just like, if you look at the past, when we had stronger families, we did better as a country.
Yeah.
But now the homes are divided. Our children are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And to me, in my heart, there should be a line drawn in the sand. When it comes to women, kids, and elders, we should all have some kind of conviction to say, hey, let's. But we see that the respect for life is dwindling down. And that's because people they don't understand the value of who they are, right?
Right.
And when I go and talk to these young people, they got potential, they're smart, and they can do so much, but it's just the chicken in the eagle in the chicken coop store. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, you've been convinced that you're a chicken, but you're an eagle. And it's sometimes like with my life, I thought I was a chicken, but I was an eagle, but prison brought the eagle out of me. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Adverse environments challenged me. God had to remove me from this situation and allow me, because prison was the best thing that ever happened to me.
You know, and that's what I was just listening to. It's not like we're encouraging kids to go to prison, but in some cases, it saved your life probably.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can't reverse your decision, right?
Right.
When I speak to people who may have a warrant or already in certain stuff, the momentum is already there. We can't stop a train. But what I can do is when it derails, we just need to be ready to help the people who are going to be affected. Because there are certain things that are going on right now in our city that we're not going to get in front of and stop.
How can people listening right now support? What do we need to do?
They can reach out and contact They can go on the DPH website, westcentralhealthdistrict.com, and then look up Cure Violence. And I think they have a volunteer application link on there somewhere. And you can get in contact with myself, Dr. Reggie Lewis, and Cedric Hill. And they can contact Pam. Anybody who's involved with Cure Violence, they can contact them. But the biggest thing is the West Central Health District .com website, because that'll bring you straight to Cure Violence. And I'm on 2 billboards. We got the Cure Violence social media page, my personal Jerome Lawson Facebook page. Reach out however you want, and what people can do, we are hiring people with my particular type backgrounds or gang related backgrounds. Yeah. Or we can use volunteers. I got a lot of people who are contacting me about just volunteering, want to support what we're doing. Because the biggest thing is this. You said it earlier. I'm a seed planter. Mm-hmm. My mind is not to change your mind. I just want to sow it. One plant of one soil, one plant, God get an increase, right? I just want to plant the seed there.
How many have you seen change? How many of these seeds have been watered right now that you've seen actually maybe turn around?
A lot. I got a lot of people who right now, because this didn't just start with Cure Violence with me. Mm-hmm. When I got out of prison, I was already doing community work. I had a program called Bridge the Gap with the Muskogee County Jail Valley Ministry, with Safe House Ministries. I had a program in there where guys were mandated to go through my program for 6 weeks. I've been doing this type of work in the community.
So you've exercised this to at a level now that it has become now. This is a nonprofit Cure Violence,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And so, I'm just I'm hoping that people that really listen to this, that could get behind this. Does it need funding? The funding would be what? Maybe is there certain things you take some of these young men? If there's ever an opportunity, is it more than just going bumping them on the street, or do you just kind of gather them together, say, hey, look, come to community center tonight. We're going to have pizza and wings. Just listen to me talk.
A lot of resources. We're well established with the 211 registry. Like, people can call in there. But we also have a lot of partners like United Way. We got Bridge, the GED program down there.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Goodwill.
Yeah.
We have a lot of partners that, and this is what Cure Violence does. Like, we know economics, poverty, and what's the other one? And jobs is economic. Education. Those are the 3 things that affect violence. When people are unemployed, don't have nowhere to stay, and
lack of
don't
education,
have a job, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we bridge them with the resources that we have available. So if they need housing, we working with United Way to get them housing, whatever they need to try to change the quality of life. And we connect them with them resources. But the thing is, we want to connect them with resources that are able to help and that will help. We don't need nobody talking, saying this is what we do. We want to be able to get results, because that gives us the data that we need to track to see what we need to either change or kind of keep implementing.
Right.
But, we connecting people with the resources that they need to change their situation and to help them and show them that we're really trying to help.
And it's great because, Landon, this note here, and we have a link right here at the bottom of the page so you can get more information on Cure Violence and all the great work that you're doing. I want other cities to hear this. I want other people out there that are inspired, that want to make a difference. Stop complaining, stop bitching about it. Maybe here's a chance that somebody listening to this today could get behind that effort and help somebody else like Jerome Lawrence in their area, their neighborhood, their city, and see what they can do to help support, whether it is you're going to be taking calls in a 211 or it's whatever it may be in your check your local United Way, check your local state office or Department of Public Health, whatever it may be, like ours here locally that we're doing this podcast, which is great. And know that, I always think of too, I think Christ ministered to those who were the prisoners, or those who were the ones that were that were criminals. And
he uses the base things of the world to confound the wise.
Right. And you said it the best. Amen to that. I mean, I think you were chosen to do this. Boy, keep doing what you're doing. Jerome, I want you to come back, and man, we're gonna talk some more about this. I'm gonna see where this is going, and keep up the good work. You've been at it now for how many years?
I got out of prison in 2008. At least since 2010.
There you go. I mean, you're talking 13 years, going into 13 years now, over a decade of this, and making some changes, and certainly you're doing a good thing. We got to get behind this, because politicians are not going to change. People's mindsets are going to change. It is, I hate to say it is what it is. It's going to take people to get at the grassroots, and and do what you're doing right now. So, I mean, and again, this is a community effort that everybody must get behind.
Cure Violence is a global nonprofit, and basically Cedric and Cedric here, Reggie Lewis, they kind of reached out and they did an assessment to get Cure Violence here. It's all over the world.
All over, yeah.
It's just different. Every city and state is different.
That's it.
But people need to get behind it, because if you want to be safe and you want to have a thriving community, that means that we're all responsible and we got to be involved.
That's right. There's no other choice. So, Jerome, keep up the good work. We're going to have you come back. I really need to know how this is all going. I think this is so critical. This is the answer to so many different things that people are hearing about. It's beyond the scope of more policing. We got to get better. Let's cut to the chase. And you did that for us today. I appreciate that perspective. And if you want to learn more about this, check out this nonprofit. Just go to WRBL.com. You can see the video portion of the Jerome. Lawson,
yes,
not
sir.
Lawrence. It's Lawson. Okay, and what we're going to do is you can check it out on the audio files, Spotify, iHeart, Audible, Apple, YouTube. We're video on there as well, streaming as we are at WRBL.com, and social media. You can catch these clips, which are great, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All here for you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Cure violence.
Thank you. We can do it together.